In this video I'll show you how you can automate your SAP PI to PO migration and automate the Seeburger migration. So first off, the PI migration tool, and obviously you probably know that you need to migrate to 7.5 upgrade. In this video I'll look at how you can actually automate the migration process in this perspective. So why you need to automate the tool, or an automation tool, there's a lot of manual processes in any kind of migration, and you need to have control over the full process. You need to speed up the migration so you can lower the cost, and you need to understand what's the current projects, clean up and make sure you're not moving too much old stuff over, and then you need to manage the project risk and the predictability of the project. So in a normal landscape you would have an old system where you would have your existing landscape in. You'll have a new system, and we'll be using this in the tool as a way to describe what is going on. And then we want to take the content from our old development system to the new one, and obviously we could also have done it from our old productive system, because then we knew it was the correct code that is going on along. So once we have migrated, we want to also configure and transport it along the way and down to the new landscape. So that's the purpose of this, making sure that we can automate this process. So we have two kind of processes in this in a migration. One is that we need to select that it's a migration. We want to migrate the stuff from the old system to the new one, and then we want to do the development that is transporting in the new landscape. So this is the transporting of this part. In the migration, we first want to make sure we have test data. We want to create the test cases and make sure that they're giving a successful result. Then we want to copy these data, or copy repository data, configure communication channels in the new system, and then we want to migrate the ICO to the new system. Then we want to make sure that everything works as we expected, and then once that is done, we can migrate it in our new landscape to QA, run the test, and further into production. So for repository, there we can use the FigAv tool to handle all the transports. Software components is being transported, and all the different objects that is actually being used. And we can import the files with the tool, so no need to import and export as a user. For directory, it's the same thing. We handle all the transports, configure communication channels, and transport via the directory API. And that means we can actually enable these kind of mappings of services. There's also another video that describes a little more in details about how you actually configure these things. So let's show you what this looks like. So first up is we have the FigAv tool here. It's a standalone Java application. It can run on your laptop, but obviously if you want to do it in a real world, it needs to be some server that all team members have access to. One thing that is pretty nice in the migration, you can connect to agents, which is all the PI systems you have in the landscape. There's this operation mapping report, and you can build this report, and what this report looks like is like this. So you have all the operation mappings in your landscape, all the message mappings, and with this you can see how many message mappings has been executed in the landscape, so you get some kind of an idea on what's going on in your landscape. And there's also an option for flagging Seeburger modules or Seeburger mappings, and there's also an overview here about which modules you're using in the landscape, so you know what's going on and how many times each module has been executed and many channels they're on. So that's a little pre-report to get an understanding of your current system. Good. So the first thing is we want to go to release. We want to create a new migration. and this is you will create it in waves, so you will figure out how you best can manage the migration. What are the interfaces that you want to migrate at one point in time? We will select migration. We will select the source landscape. This is our old 7.4 system, our new system, and the default migration. This is where we need to select the landscape we need to use from the old system to the new system, and we can set a default assignee if we wanted to have that. So now we have a migration way that we can use to manage this migration. So first off is we will add some scenarios that we want to do, and we want to select test cases from it. We want to select a number of ICOs that is a part of this. So we select 4 here, or 3 here. We save, and we now have created migrations of 3 scenarios. We can then switch to tickets, and with the tickets we can figure out and manage these different steps. So first off, if we just take one of these here, we can see here we got a number of test cases that have been added to this. It is really simple to create test cases. You simply just go to your old system. So it's the old system here. So here we have a list of all the test cases or all the ICOs on the old system. We can also select classical scenarios, but if we just want to take some of these messages here, we can say record. How many messages do we want to record? Create it to a test case. So this could be sales demo. So we'll group these into two cases that make sense for us. We'll say start. And then we can actually, just like this, create the recording, and then it will wait until it receives a number of messages that's being sent on these interfaces. And once we've done that and it has collected enough messages on it, we will simply just say create test case from it, and then we have created a test case. So that's the process to create a test case. So it is really simple, and there's a whole lot of different ways you can handle this. And this is the FIGAF testing tool that we'll be using for it. So we already created some test cases for this, and obviously you want to see, do we have test cases for this scenario or not? And if you do not, then you obviously need to create them so you are able to test everything. We can either go from our prepared state here. We have all the data that we need from it. We can select them. We need to be in the tickets perspective, because we act on tickets, and then we can move to the development. In the development, we can go through and see, are there any changes here? There's no. We can then just start the transport, and the transport will then create a transport based on the different objects that is actually involved in this case. So now we have the transports, and if we go here, we can see there's 3 transports. There is one for service interfaces, and this actually transport is for all these 3 objects. You can also obviously do it for one, but it's a little more convenient. You can see, and this is part of the DevOps part, that allow you to actually see, if we apply this change on this extra system, what is the differences that's going to be applied there. So we select import, and this will then import these on our new development system. We will then take the next one, which is all our mappings and operation mappings that we obviously need to apply to it, and this also just takes a little while. And we need to get all the data afterwards, so we are sure everything is successful. So now that's done. And the last thing is we have the communication channels that we want to migrate, and here you just select this migrate password if possible. So you're ensuring that you get the password over to the new system and handle it in like that. And one of the things we have is we have this mapping of communication channels. So in here we can go and see on the old system this value was called this. On the new system we want to call it something else. So we know that this is value that we need to change. That could be host name, ports, whatever. And it is a way of us making sure that everything is correct for it. So now we have done that, and we will obviously go through all of these. We have option here to validate transport. I'll see are there any passwords that has been filled in one place that's not filled in the other one. And then we simply select import, and this will then import all of this on the new development system, and we are good to go. And we can then go back to our tickets, see which one of these we have. We can we probably want to run these test cases on here. One caveat with these test cases has been created from a secured system. That means it's actually private data that no one should be able to access, and therefore it's only possible to test on specific systems. So we can only test this on our test system. So that means for now all of this is resolved, and we can go here, we can select here finish transport, that everything was okay. Now all of these tickets are in our migrated state. We can select here migrate configuration, and what this will do is it will take the communication channel information from our queue and map it to the communication channel information from our new queue system and host names and ports and everything like that. So you get one consistent migration, and that you don't need to figure out all these different ports that has been applied. So now we have created 15 configurations. I guess that's 15 communication channel and other objects that needs to be migrated. And we can then just create our development tickets based on this. We need to create the license for one, and this is how you'll create licenses. It's really simple, just to create licenses or request licenses. Let's see. So now we are in the development phase. So now we have 3 that is migrated. We have 3 here that is development tickets. So we can see these are development tickets. These are migration of specific scenarios. So what we can do here is we can select these. We can start our transport, and this will do actually the same thing as we did once we're transporting on the old system. And in here, if we open this and open the transport, so we can either go from here and see the transports that's involved in this process. The only thing that's interesting is obviously the communication channels here. What are they defined? So this is going to be on T75, and let's see if it picked up at least the values from here. Maybe this was one of the things we didn't change or something like that. But you would obviously need to go through these and just make sure that they're updated, and in most cases it should find the correct values that needs to be applied here. But obviously you just need to check that it fetches or everything, and then you can just send it to approval. So in our new landscape we have configured the landscape to have approval. That means that someone that is admin can approve it, and I'm admin and can approve data in this one, so I can just approve all of these 3 transports, so that I know what's being transported and everything is correct. And we just have the second one here. This one is in progress. I missed one. In progress. So we have the transport here, and if this one is just created, we send it to approval. Approve it. And now we can start the import again. We'll do the other one. So it's just a bunch of clicks, and you don't even need to log into the PI system to do these things. And once it actually acts on this one, everything will be configured, everything will look good based on your configuration. And if you go back to the test here, so we have our test, we can then decide which system we want to run them on, and we want to run it on our test system, which is marked as a secured system. And what that means is we will actually be able to run the test cases here, and when we run test cases, we will send it into a communication channel. It will process the ICO mappings, routing, and modules, and as a result, we will then be able to see how did this occur, what was going on. Oh, there were some errors here, and we can go and dig deeper into what were these errors, and we can actually see it's just a date here, so no big deal. We can just say okay, ignore it. And one of the things here, we can see this is actually masked all the data, so we don't really know what is in it. We just know that there's numbers and digits, but we don't have really a good way to understand what's the deal about these things. And this makes it easier to get external people to involve, because they cannot really see if there's any differences, or they can see if there's differences, but they cannot understand and view the data. So that is what our secured test data is about. So now, yeah, we can run this again, so we can do comparison again. This will then, based on the ignoring algorithm we have added, it will say, hey, now this is successful. And we have now completed the migration. So now it's just to go back to our migration here, say that all of this has been finished, the transport has been finished, and we can now see that these are actually in production, and we are happy. If we want to get documentation of this process, we have an option here to create a report, and this will then create a report of everything that we have changed as a part of this. What are all the transport, what are all the objects that was a part of this this ticket. So we can see here, this was the basic information about this. This were all the objects that was a part of this change. We get information about the test cases we had, what were the last run of these, and obviously we did have some errors in it, and we obviously would need to go through and just make sure everything is successful. And I think it should have shown here that there was 1 successful run and 3 failed. So we got all the information about the errors here, and we can see also here that it is this date that is different. So we got a lot of transport or documentation about our process, and we can see all the objects that was transported when they were imported on the test systems and stuff like that. So all of this is just to make it easier for you to manage your migration, so you can be successful at it. And once you're done with the migration, I guess you can just switch it and change the status to completed. So this was what the migration tool can do for you. So we showed we can take the configuration, all the repository directory, configure it over here, and then apply the configuration down the landscape. We saw the demo, some extra options. If you want specific configuration of the Seeburger adapters, we can add that to it. Support of the EDI separator, something we can add. Classical to single stack, I think the SAP migration tool there is probably just as good. But obviously you will still need to configure communication channels and run the testing. So at that point there is really a good benefit of it. We do have options to also test or fetch data from dual stack system that you can use in the migration to test that everything looks identical, and then if you want some custom data for your migrations. So it's licensed per ICO that you migrate, and and it's 150 euros per ICO migrated, including testing, transport, and configuration. So all the things that you have seen here is included in this, and if you got a larger number, you will get some kind of a discount on it. And once you're finished with the migration, the FIGAF DevOps tool will also work as a way for you to transport and manage your SAP integration. So just as we saw with our development transport, this is what you would actually be able to use in a normal real-life scenario. Installation, it is really simple to get started with the FIGAF DevOps tool or migration tool. You just install it on your laptop and you can run and connect it with the system, and it takes like 10 minutes to get started. To do this, we really recommend, if you want to do large smart or test data, to use the FIGAF modules, but we do also have other options where you can use the built-in logging modules from SAP and use that. It's not really as performant, but it will make it easier to run these things. And obviously in a real scenario you want to have it with a server installation. A lot of our customers is running in Asia with for instance the Postgres database services to run there, and you can download it at figaf.com/ERT or DevOps. It's the same tool that does all of these different things. It's just different use cases that you want to apply and license. So you can get the FIGAF migration tool and get the first migrations for free, so you can see how it works and if everything is expected. One other thing that I promised was the Seeburger migration, and Seeburger migration is one of the challenges that you want to get rid of these because the structures of the Seeburger message mappings are different, and that means that it does not support B2B add-on. And since Seeburger is not really supported on 7.5, you want to get rid of it and migrate to the B2B add-on. And there's a one-to-one migration where you just create a document that for each of the different structures is it. The other approach is to update your mapping to the Seeburger structure, and this is the approach I recommend, because then you are a lot easier and adapting and do not have two different layers of figure out where the data is if there's any errors in the mapping. And then you can create new mappings based on the B2B structures. This is obviously, or probably, the best approach, but it will really take a lot of time for you to redesign your migration or your EDI setup and test it and everything like that. Obviously, the FIGAF tool will enable you to test this. We have a lot of EDI and XML comparison that makes it really simple to set up these things and test it. As said, the update is the best approach, and here we can see a different in the structure. So here we have the B2B add-on. The root element is list, and in the DESADV or in the B2B it's DESADV. We can see some of the structures is different depending on where in the schema you are. And one of the things we have added is a tool that actually enables you to take these mappings and convert them really simple. So let me just find so here we have a message mapping. We can see it is using the list structure, so this is a Seeburger mapping. And we will like to go to the Seeburger migration tool. So here we will select this message mapping. We will select the B2B schema, and we can obviously select it from these schemas. We will then simply just press convert. This will then download the mapping, run an algorithm, figure out what's the best mappings of these things. We will then be able to set it up, and we can then push, and this will then create a change list with this specific change. So if we back here, we can see here there's a new change here. So if we just close this one and open it again, what we can see is that it has been replaced to an invoice, so this is no longer a Seeburger, and the only thing we just need to do is make a small change in it, press save, and then the message is recompiled and everything looks good. If you have specific Seeburger functions and stuff like that, you probably need to go through and figure out how to handle these things and what should be going on with those, and then it's just to accept, and you are good to go and you can start testing it. And obviously it really makes sense to use the FIGAF testing tool as a part of this. So we do have a couple of versions where there's the basic one that that takes your message mapping. We do support all the B2B schema structures, so X12, Edifact, EA-Income, which is the same, VDA and TraderCom. And sometimes you need to apply some custom mappings for it, but it is really simple, and as you saw, it does not take long time. And then we may find a way to do some custom mappings. If you have a lot of specific UDF you want to have migrated or converted, we can add some custom logic for that. And then you obviously want to be able to take your old data, run it through, and see everything is converted correctly. There can be a lot of changes in the B2B modules and stuff like that, and you want to make sure those are tested. So if you want to try it out, go to figaf.com/SMT and download the tool. Try it out. The first 10 mappings is for free, so you can see how it works and how easy it is to use. To figaf.com and check out the migration tool to see if that is something that would help you. Otherwise, the DevOps part will really make it easier for you to manage your SAP PI PO landscape. So I hope you enjoyed this. Do like it. Click the like button. I really appreciate that. So thanks for watching.